to Revolution Report, the show that highlights pressing issues, uplifts community voices, and questions the status quo. I'm Sarah Livings-Walsh.
And I'm Analisa, Venolia.
We felt the need to dive deeper into societal problems and explore subjects from diverse perspectives. So join us in the revolution. This episode, we're going to discuss Project 2025. It's something that has been used a lot as a buzzword, but not everyone may know a ton about it. So we wanted to do a small deep dive into what Project 2025 actually is and what's ahead.
We'll also share some important tips for keeping yourself safe while protesting. So make sure you stay tuned the whole way through. No point in wasting time. Let's get right to it. According to the ACLU, Project 2025 is, quote, a federal policy agenda and blueprint for a radical restructuring of the executive branch, authored and published by former Trump administration officials in partnership with the Heritage Foundation, end quote. It's a 900-page document of a deeply conservative, right-wing agenda, which you can see from their own description of their plan.
Oh boy. Okay. Now, this is from their website. Quote, Project 2025 is a historic movement brought together by over 100 respected organizations from across the conservative movement to take down the deep state and return the government to the people. It offers a menu of policy suggestions to meet our country's deepest challenges and put America back on track.
Whoo!
Okay,
Yeah.
Back on track to what?
Their white nationalist, conservative Christian agenda, a very evangelical agenda.
Absolutely. Now, there's a reason why we have separation of church and state, but that, in my opinion, does not apply anymore.
Oh, yeah. I mean, all of these politicians and the Heritage Foundation themselves are bringing their religion into the policies that they're implementing and almost forcing the rest of America to comply with their own religious beliefs, regardless of the fact that under the First Amendment, we all have freedom of religion.
Yeah, no, a lot of people have been hurt by implementing Project 2025.
Yeah.
We see a lot of premature deaths. We see a lot of women being killed, women being prosecuted for having abortions, women actually getting fined for not being able to carry to term.
There's so many atrocities being committed on a human rights level under the guidance of the Heritage Foundation and Project 2025. And it's absolutely horrendous, which is why it's so important that we're talking about this.
Yeah. Their stated highlights of Project 2025 include securing the border, finishing building the wall, and deporting illegal aliens.
De-weaponizing the federal government by increasing accountability and oversight of the FBI and Department of Justice.
Unleashing American energy production to reduce energy prices.
Cutting the growth of government spending to reduce inflation.
Making federal bureaucrats more accountable to the democratically elected president and Congress.
Improving education by moving control and funding of education from D.C. bureaucrats directly to parents and state and local governments.
Banning biological males from competing in women's sports. Now, let's dive into why all of these stated highlights are absolutely ridiculous, unconstitutional, and completely off their rocker.
Absolutely. Starting with the securing of the border, the language is already bigoted.
Yeah.
Illegal aliens.
Illegal aliens, that has never sat right with me. I believe that no person is illegal, and we stand firm on that here.
Absolutely.
At Revolution Report. And also, illegal aliens, I think it's a misrepresentation of what's actually happening.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you hear the term illegal, that is associated with bad.
Yeah.
That word is associated with crime. And people seeking asylum, that is not a crime.
Correct. It's legally, in the definition of law for the whole world, it is not.
Yeah.
And we're already seeing this part of Project 2025 be implemented in absolutely heinous ways by ICE and Border Patrol. And if you want to hear more about that, we have an episode, our previous episode, about this, and you can check it out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We encourage you to listen and share.
And moving on to de-weaponizing the federal government by increasing accountability and oversight of the FBI and DOJ.
Yeah. So what they mean by that is they want the president to have control over the FBI and Department of Justice, and in doing so, make them be able to dismiss investigations they don't like, open up investigations into political enemies, prosecute people they don't like. And we're seeing that with how, as soon as Trump got into office, they immediately slashed the investigation the FBI was doing into January 6th.
Yes, which I just find that ironic because the Heritage Foundation and the Trump administration claim to be big supporters of cops, big supporters of that blue collar life. They do not care about you. If you are in blue collar, unfortunately, they do not care about you.
No, you're a pawn for them.
You are a pawn. And I think that this has been proven by the blatant disrespect of the cops that were killed on January 6th.
Absolutely. As for unleashing American energy production to reduce energy prices, what they mean is focusing on fossil fuels.
Horrible.
Yeah, absolutely. We will dive into that a little bit more later, but just know that's what they mean.
Yes, and moving on to the next highlight, cutting the growth of government spending to reduce inflation, aka Doge.
The Department of Government Efficiency, run by tech oligarch Elon Musk and his little cronies.
Little young cronies
Who don't know anything about the government and who have slashed very important jobs only to days later say, oopsies, we're sorry, come back because we do actually need you.
Oh, are you referring to them cutting nuclear scientists?
I am indeed referring to that as one of the examples. Unfortunately, there are many because they are fools. And now moving on to making federal bureaucrats more accountable to democratically elected president and Congress. What they mean, even though that sounds nice, ooh, accountable. No, what they mean is that the president has ultimate power. They want to reduce checks and balances. They want to get rid of oversight of the president and just make that individual, in this case, Donald Trump, have supreme power over the land and not be able to be stopped.
Yes, and I think they are incredibly foolish for thinking that they can run a country like a credit card.
Ooh, I love that. Yes. Yes. Oh, it's a whole mess, and that process is currently tying up the courts, and thank goodness that some judges are refusing to roll over for Trump and his administration.
No, absolutely. They are brave, and we should be applauding them for standing up to very, very dangerous people.
Yeah. Moving on to improving education by moving control and funding of education from DC bureaucrats directly to parents and state and local governments. They're doing that by getting rid of the Department of Education.
Yep.
Which is just a whole disaster, has countless repercussions, and we will be seeing that in the coming months and coming years, how that's affecting public schools, public universities.
Yeah, the problem when you give all of the power to the states is that those states in rural areas, very conservative areas, they are going to be harming so many people.
Oh, yeah, because that's getting rid of protections for minorities in education.
Exactly. No, this is a tragedy.
It absolutely is.
Yeah. Moving on to our last highlight, banning biological males from competing in women's sports, which is absolutely transphobic. We are seeing a war on trans folk.
Yeah, this is one of the Republican Party's favorite talking points at the moment, is creating this false characterization.
Straw man.
Yeah, that trans people are somehow monsters doing evil and it's an epidemic that's taking over the youth, blah, blah, blah. Barely a percentage of the population in the United States identifies as trans. Tell me how that they are somehow an epidemic and this quote-unquote gender ideology is perpetuating into the minds of youth everywhere. No, it's not. Stop.
No.
You're being foolish.
No, when we protect trans people, we are protecting trans kids. We are protecting trans youth. We are protecting so many children. And suicide rates have gone up for this attack on trans people because they're refusing medical attention. They're refusing just the right to exist. It's wreaking havoc on people and their mental health, and it's horrible.
It's absolutely horrible, and we want to make it known that here at Revolution Report, here at Handball Court Radio, we have always and will always stood with trans people, and we stand for trans rights.
We absolutely do. Forever.
Forever.
We've mentioned the Heritage Foundation a lot. Let's go over who they are. They're a conservative think tank group established in 1973.
They are super hateful. They're opposed to gay marriage. They support conversion therapy. They support book bans. They don't believe economic inequality exists. They want to ban sick leave. They believe Medicaid is wasteful. And they want to eradicate Social Security, just to name a few of their absolutely insane beliefs. And they also hate the Postal Service, which is...
Who could hate a mailman? Who could hate a mail woman? Who could hate a mail they?
Mail they. But the Postal Service is such a deeply American, in the best way, service, and they're so vital to just getting
information out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, imagine hating the post people. Ugh.
Yeah. Crazy. The Heritage Foundation's board is made up of CEOs from many businesses, including Forbes and Amway, and it receives funding from the Koch brothers.
Which should tell you a lot because they are responsible for funding so many horrible conservative policies.
Yeah. We already touched on what Project 2025 claims some of its goals are, but let's go over some more parts of their plan. A lot of these will feel very familiar to anyone who has been paying attention to politics in the last few months. Clearly, Project 2025 is Trump and the Heritage Foundation's playbook.
Absolutely. Some highlights of the plan are placing all of the federal bureaucracy, including independent organizations like the FBI, under presidential control. We're already seeing that being implemented.
Drastic overhaul of several federal agencies, including abolishing the Department of Education, already effectively happened.
Some highlights of Project 2025 include placing all of the federal bureaucracy, including independent organizations like the FBI, under presidential control, which we're already seeing being implemented.
Drastic overhaul of several federal agencies, including abolishing the Department of Education, which has already effectively happened.
Eliminating job protections for thousands of government employees, which would make it easier to replace those workers with political appointees.
Withdrawing the abortion pill mifepristone from the market and making it illegal to be sent by mail.
Dismantling the Department of Homeland Security and combining it with other immigration units to create an even more powerful border policing situation.
Now, this next one is triggering, so I wanted to put out a trigger warning. Eliminating visa categories for victims of crime and human trafficking.
Absolutely evil.
Evil.
Cutting funding for research into renewable energy and instead focusing on oil and natural gas.
Imposing tariffs on goods.
Cutting taxes on corporations and abolishing the Federal Reserve.
Ending diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives.
Giving public funds to private schools and religious schools.
Now, this is a wild last one, but which is unlikely to happen. Banning porn and shutting down any tech companies that allow access to adult materials. Now, as we know, the porn industry is very, very abusive.
Yeah.
Very exploitative. But do you know how many times a politician has been linked to Grindr or Tinder or watching porn on their phone during work?
It's happened so often that it's a common joke about people in Washington.
Yeah, and let's not forget, and I will never let this go, of when Ted Cruz liked a porn.
Oh my god, yes, he liked the porn tweet.
Uh-huh. I will never let it go.
That was so funny. Oh
Nor should I.
No, never let him live it down. And this policy is incredibly unlikely to happen despite what the Heritage Foundation may wish, because Trump is currently buddy-buddy with a bunch of tech bros. And tech bros are not going to support anything that threatens their businesses. Twitter, currently known as X, but still Twitter to me, has a ton of porn bots.
Yeah.
You know, they wouldn't have as much business or traction if those suddenly all disappeared. And same goes for a ton of social media sites. You think Meta's going to be in favor? Not that they claim to support that, because they claim that it violates their policies, but think of all of those lingerie models and things like that whose content would be banned.
Instagram models would be out of a job.
Exactly.
No shame, no shame, no shame.
No shame. We support you. Get your bag. But it's just with this administration's connections, that is the one aspect of Project 2025 that just seems like it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But it's crazy that it was on there.
Yeah.
Of the 302 initiatives detailed in Project 2025, Trump has completed 100 of them as of the time of this recording and has made progress on 53 more.
The abolition of U.S. aid was on that list, as were the crackdowns on journalists and the ongoing efforts to cut funding for NPR and PBS.
There are over 100 goals left to accomplish in Project 2025's plan, including reducing disability claims for veterans.
Coming from a veteran household, my dad has a Purple Heart. This is egregious.
Absolutely. And it's even more proof that they don't care about the American people. You may have given years of your life in service of this country in the most literal sense, and they don't care about you.
If you want to get an idea of what's ahead, check out the Project 2025 tracker that we'll link in our episode resources on our website, handballcourtradio.com.
Last fall, the Heritage Foundation released a plan that detailed wanting to use the pro-Palestinian movement to pull university funding and strip professors and students of their legal immigration status. To excuse these actions, they plan to label pro-Palestinian protesters as terrorists, anti-Semitic, and anti-American.
Which they are not. And especially with eliminating due process, we are going to be seeing a lot of political prisoners.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's going to be taking us back to a very dark time in history. And it is something that we should not roll over and take.
No. With that in mind, we wanted to share some tips to keep yourself safe if you're going to protest.
If you're protesting in person, here are things to keep in mind. Turn off your Face ID on your phone while at the protest, if you're even bringing your phone in the first place. Ideally, your phone should be left at home, but if that's not possible and you need that as a method to communicate with people, make sure your phone is fully off while there and location services are disabled.
You don't need to sign up anywhere to join a protest, so do not sign your name on any lists or things requesting a roster of who's attending. That's a scam.
Cover any identifiable markings, like tattoos, and wear a mask, both for the protection of your identity and safety. You don't want to get sick.
Bring water and snacks just in case.
If there's a possibility of a police crackdown, write the number of a pro bono law agency on your arm in Sharpie. And milk does help with tear gas.
Also, make sure your friends and family know where you are.
And on a similar note, ideally have someone attending the protest with you. It's always safer to go with somebody than be alone just in case something happens.
Yes, and I wanted to go back to the cover any identifiable markings. As a former makeup artist, I wanted to share some tips on how to cover tattoos. First, you want to start by prepping the skin with a primer, then use a color corrector like orange or red to neutralize the tattoo's color, and then follow by a full coverage foundation and concealer. And then finally set with powder and setting spray. Preferably, you want to use a waterproof setting spray so that those do not come off if you get sprayed, if you're sweating, if anything.
That is super important information. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
Now, for online matters, make sure you use a VPN and a safe browser. Currently, Firefox has the most protections for users. And, of course, don't post things that will get you put on a watch list, no threats, or things like that. That wraps up our discussion of Project 2025. We hope it was informative.
As always, useful resources based on our conversation will be linked on our website, handballcourtradio.com. You can also follow us at Blue Sky at Handball Court Radio. You can also follow me there at Sarah Livings-Walsh.
I'm there as Not Like Mona Lisa. Don't forget to rate, review, and follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts.
With that, I'm Sarah Livings-Walsh.
I'm Analisa Venolia.
And this has been Revolution Report.